You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson on my radio show, Author to Author. How are you, Gerard?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good to hear.
Would you like to open us with a prayer?
Yes. Dear Father, please, through your Holy Spirit, inspire our minds, keep us close to you, and let us not be separated from you, and let us be very orthodox in our opinions and in our views on God's presence in this world. Amen.
Amen. So this is very interesting. How long did it take you to come up with these 60 people and write about all of them?
To come up with 60, because they had lived already, was easier for me than you think. You just think about all you have heard and seen in your life as a Catholic. And I discovered through a lot of issues that certain Catholics were rather unknown to most other Catholics, that they had done such an important job in our world. They had changed the world, as the title of my book says, 60 Catholics who changed the world. Of course, there are many more, but I thought those were the 60 most important ones, so I took them from different kind of areas, from science, education, philosophy, social issues, healthcare. And once you have those categories, you can find them. And there are many more, but I thought the most important ones are in this book. And besides, we don't want to confuse readers with too many more obscure ones. What I call obscure is they are not so well known. But anyway, that's how I came up with them. And it didn't take me too long.
Yeah, as I go through the list, I recognize the majority of them, but some people I have not seen before, so I think that's not seen their names before, so I think that's it's going to be very interesting when you think of how many people live fairly quiet lives and silent lives, and yet they have such an impact on the world.
Yes. And you have quite a background in all of this, so imagine if they are unknown to you, some of them, how unknown they are to most Catholics. Yes,
I agree. For instance,
and therefore this book is important. I think that they say, "Oh, those are 60 people who made our life in this world."
You're right. I just was looking at number 55 with John Augustine Ryan, and I never knew about. I know we have a minimum wage, but I never knew about his influence on it. I'd never even heard his name.
Yeah, he's the one who introduced minimum wage concept, which is nowadays we all think that is so common. No, it wasn't for a long time until Father John Ryan came along, and he was inspired by Pope Leo XIII. Who is the Pope who made our social justice system important, and then Father John Ryan came up with the minimum wage. Great, we are still grateful for that.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are, and many people, when you think of how difficult life is without money, I mean, you need access to food and health care, housing, all of those things. Without a minimum wage, many people would be in a much worse situation.
Oh, yes, definitely. So thanks to Father John Ryan.
Yes. So I thought maybe you would like to pick some of the people that you've talked about or written about and cover the ones that you thought are of the most interest. We have an hour, so you can choose as many as you want.
I think I'm going to just use 20 minutes of that hour that you offer so that people don't say, "Oh, we don't need the book anymore. I have heard everything now in this hour." So I would like to just put some suspension in there, and that they say, "Hey, how is that possible?" So when I think of someone like Benedict, we all know Saint Benedict, the founder of the Benedictine order, but we probably don't realize that our hospitals started with him. He had one of the first hospitals. They were basically connected to his monasteries, but that idea is nowadays so accepted. Everyone knows hospital, and we hate it, of course, because we don't want to be there. But we need them. So there is the good old Saint Benedict. Again, those 60 Catholics are not all saints, of course. Maybe they will be someday, or they are, and we don't know yet. But he is one of them. Then we keep talking all the time about human rights. Oh my gosh! And nowadays there are even rights for things we don't think they are rights. Where is that word coming from? Another Catholic, Robert Bellarmine, he introduced the rights issue. And then a modern version of it, Jacques Maritain, a philosopher, he was an important part of drafting the things on human rights that came from the UN, the United Nations. Without Jacques Maritain, we wouldn't probably have much about human rights nowadays. So that's another one we should think of. Then there is freedom of press. Nowadays, that's on everyone's lips. And you might think, where does that come from? So I'm asking the question, for I'm sure a lot of Catholics would say, no idea. But it comes from another, in this case a saint again, Titus Brandsma. I like him very much because he's as Dutch as I am. So he was during the Second World War. He was very brave. The Archbishop of the Netherlands asked him to be the representative for the press. And the press was tortured at that time, was pressed at that time to make propaganda for the Nazi party. And Brandsma went to all the main editors of Catholic newspapers and said to them, do not do that. There is a freedom of press. There is the word, and we need to talk to our people, our Catholics, with freedom of press and not indoctrinated by the Nazis. So there is another one that I think of. Then we think of the Red Cross, for instance. Nowadays, what would we do without the Red Cross? Not only on the when there are conflicts or wars, but we are all in trouble all the time with infections, and the Black Plague is long ago, but we also now we have the coronavirus or the virus, whatever you call it. Who came up with the Red Cross? Camillus de Lellis, a Catholic, eventually a priest, and now even a saint, who started the Red Cross idea. He had a group of priests, brothers, who went to the battlefields, who went to hospitals, and they have on their habit, on their outfit, a Red Cross. Now, each time we hear about the Red Cross, no one thinks that it has a Catholic origin. So there is another one. Then, if you don't mind, I keep talking.
Oh, yes, please do.
So then we have the calendar we use nowadays. All over the world is a Gregorian calendar. It was promulgated by Pope Gregory XIII. It was I can't say a Catholic invention, but in essence it was, because until that time we were dealing with the Julian calendar. And the Julian calendar is way off. It's quite a bit off. So in order to adjust the new one, we had to skip 13 days. That's what it had accumulated by not being correct. So the one we have now is very accurate. Pope Gregory didn't do all of that by himself, but he used the Jesuits of the Roman College at that time, and he used their astronomical knowledge to come up with a very reliable calendar. How reliable it is? We still have it, and we still go by it, and it's very good. It's very perfect. It has certain rules, and if we follow them, the calendar will not be off until, I forgot, but I think for another 400 years it will still be correct. So that's
wow.
very impressive.
That is. Yes.
So then I think of the nowadays, if there are still people left who read books, they need a printing press, and if they don't read books, they need newspapers, and if they don't need newspapers, then they need the internet, and that is basically a form of printing. Where does that come from? Johannes Gutenberg. Gutenberg was a Catholic printer, and the first Bibles, for that's what he's known for, that he printed were Catholic Bibles, and not, as Protestants usually claim, a Protestant Bible. No, it was not a Protestant Bible, it was a Catholic Bible. And from then on, the printing became very professional, thanks to Johannes Gutenberg, another Catholic. And then, because I have a scientific background, I love the science Catholics.
Yes.
And one of the famous one that we probably are familiar with, and most people are, is Copernicus. He was a Catholic, and he introduced that the Earth was not in the center of the universe, but the sun was. Of course, nowadays we know that it's not the sun that is in the center of the universe. It is basically through Father George Lemaitre, another Catholic, that we have a Big Bang theory. And the Big Bang theory we probably would not have at this point if we didn't have Father George Lemaitre. He was a priest in Belgium, and he brought that idea up. And who was very upset about that idea? Of all people, believe it or not, our famous physicist, and you know whom I mean, or I ask the people who are listening to it, he is always quoted as the most reliable physicist there is, and he came up with something that you would never think of. And that was that he said, "Hey, where is all of that we are trying to change?" And it was basically that it happened because the famous. I'm trying to locate where I have that information in the book, where people will find it. Anyway, the one who was Albert Einstein. He was very
upset by it.
Imagine.
Wow.
Albert Einstein said to him,
surprises me.
Your mathematics is perfect, but your physics is abominable. So he later on retracted those words, and he said, "Sorry, Lemaitre." He called him, of course, George. He said, you were perfectly right. I had to change those words, and I apologize that I ever mentioned to them. You see, even in science, even the great ones among us, they are not perfect. A lot of scientists think they are almighty. Forget it. They are not. Yeah. And then I would like to mention one more from the science camp, and that is, I think, almost my favorite one. That is the one who for the first time came up with the idea that we get infected by microorganisms. And that one was, and probably most people have never heard of him, Ignaz Semmelweis. Ignaz Semmelweis was the first one who discovered that that women who died during childbirth in his hospital, he thought, how is that possible? We do so much work for them, and we try to heal them, and they die under our hands. What the guy did not realize for a long time, it took him quite a while, he compared the two clinics they had in his hospital, and one clinic was for just midwifery, for midwives and delivery, and the other one was also for medical students who learned how to operate on women who had problems with surgery or whatever. And he found out that the second clinic had a much higher death rate, and it took him quite a while. He did not quite know how to explain that. For people thought that disease, or whatever you want to call it, that it was caused by the air. But he said they both come from the same environment, so that cannot be it. At one point he even thought that it was the priest who came and brought them communion, or the last rites, and the priest had always at that time an altar server who had a little bell with him, so he thought it was a psychological effect. And he said, yeah, probably those people get so nervous and they die from that. But finally, he saw the light, and he discovered that it was that the medical students who worked on autopsies, that they transferred the bad things from the people they had worked on, dead corpses. They transferred it to the women. So that was a serious problem. And why is he one of my favorite ones? Because he was a real Catholic. Some people have thought that he was Jewish, but there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But he was definitely not Jewish. His first name, Ignatius, tells you already the story that he was a real Catholic. You can find in birth certificates that he was baptized as a Catholic. He had a brother who was a priest. So he was definitely a Catholic. But because he was so conscientious and he had a high responsibility, he tried to stop his clinic from infecting women by going from biopsies to the delivery room. So he had to stand near the door and tell all his students, wash your hands. And they didn't, because surgeons at that time, they were so proud of their blood on their outfit, and it was a proof of how they were as surgeons. And he said, forget about it. So he had to fight against the arrogance of the MDs, the medical doctors. You know, those MDs, they can be very arrogant, even more than scientists sometimes. So he had to fight for that, and he could not win that battle. So he got so depressed from all of that. That was his Catholic conscience, that they to a mental institution. And the saddest part of his life is that there some doctor hit his leg with a scalpel and infected him with the disease he had been fighting for years. That's the sad part of it. But anyway, that is one of my favorite ones. There are many more. As we said, there are many in the social issues that I will just mention. Don Bosco, Peter Claver, Dorothy Day, Leo XIII. But I would say to your audience, grab the book, 60 Catholics Who Changed the World, and they will tell you through their lives what the Catholic Church has done for many, many of us, and that we wouldn't be who we are without them.
That's right. And hopefully this tradition will continue in time.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too.
Yes.
And if I live long enough, I might come up with another 60 Catholics.
I bet you wouldn't have trouble doing that.
I'm not sure about that, but so anyway, this is what I can offer at this moment, and I hope your audience is anxious to see the book. So I thank you so much, Cynthia, for giving me the time to be on your show, and I wish you all the best with your good work.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your allowing me to interview you. It's been very enriching, really.
My pleasure.
I think I may I'm going to tell my Catholic social teaching class about this book. I think they would find it interesting.
Oh, that would be great. And
yes.
I think they will learn a lot from it. Not because I said it,
so
because those 60 Catholics said it.
Very important.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your giving me the interview, and I noticed you have quite a few other books, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
So we should. I will email you, and we should set up times to do the other interviews.
Oh, okay. That would be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure. You have a good day now.
Yeah, you too, and your audience too.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.